So I've been playing New World throughout the beta. I've been popping on to different servers to understand the difference between PvP on each server, because open world PvP is the primary draw for me to come to this game. I really enjoy the rest of what MMOs have to offer, things like doing your quests, leveling, crafting. I love a bit of crafting, but my main pull is PvP and specifically open world. So there's some things which I really wanted to share with you, which I've learned throughout the time that I've been in beta. And I understand that it's now the end of the beta, but I think it's really useful to collate all of these things so that when we jump into the live game, we can all be prepared and on the front foot, ready to go out there as soon as we hit level 9 and choose a faction. So the things I want to discuss with you today are PvP scaling, why it's important to this game. I want to talk about some movement and how movement can, in a lot of fights, win the fight for you, as opposed to your skills and the way you set up and your item level and your level. That movement can sometimes be the make or break. It's really important in this game, and as part of that movement I want to talk about some rolls, dodges, and using cover and things like that. And then I want to talk about and finish on your weapons, your skills, get some synergy between your weapons, skills and attributes, and then some of your consumables as well. Okay, so let's start with PvP scaling and what PvP scaling is. Essentially, PvP scaling means that regardless of what your level is and what your item level is and what gear you have and how much armor that gear has, when you fight somebody, you will have a fair fight. You will be on equal level. So scaling scales that person who is higher than you down or scales you up. The idea is that it will put you on the same level. That happens a lot in other MMORPGs, but in this game it is really important, because what it means is there's a lot more emphasis on your skill, and some of the things that we're going to talk about today are the things which can change a battle. It can win that battle regardless of that other person's level. I want to talk to you about movement. I want to talk to you about rolling, dodging, animation cancelling and using cover. And they're the skills that I mean, which can change your PvP encounters. Before I do though, there's some really important keybinds which you're going to need to set up. The keybinds that I strongly recommend setting up is something which is really quickly accessible for crouch, for prone, and for swap active weapons. These two will already have a keybind, but change them to something that's really easy to reach around your buttons on your keyboard or something on your mouse. I've actually got these on my mouse buttons. Those buttons are remapped to my mouse, and this one is also on my mouse. This one isn't already actively got a key bound to it, so you need to make sure you go and put something on that. Let's start with movement then. Movement is really important in this game, and becoming a master and moving around can win nearly any fight in this game. That's PvE, so it can be really important when you're going into expeditions, but I think the movement in this game really comes into its own when you start having PvP battles and you're fighting against somebody else, so you can kind of manipulate them and move according to what they're doing. The first thing I want to talk to you about is something called animation cancelling. You might have heard about this in another video and you might have seen it already, or you might be coming from a first person shooter game and you have some experience in kind of slide cancelling or animation cancelling in that. Essentially what it means is we're going to stop this animation which slows you down when you roll or dodge or hop forward, depending on what your class is set up like. So look, I'll stop and slowly get up before I start running again, and slowly get up. By changing weapon halfway through the roll, and that's that button, that swap active weapon which we just talked about in the keybinds, you can stop that happening. So you just carry on running. And again, roll, roll, roll. I'm literally rolling and switching weapons straight away. One thing to note is if you see my energy bar at the bottom, I'm managing to get 3 sprints out of that bar. If you do 2 straight away, it'll deplete it and you won't be able to get that third. So go 1, wait for it to come back a little bit, look, 2, and then 3. And you fly, you really do. Anybody in heavy armor, they're not going to catch you. They're not going to catch you for days. So if those big tanky characters with big 2-handed axes and 2-handed hammers are not going to catch you. And that's something else that we really need to talk about, your armor setup. So on my character at the moment, you can see that I'm in the light category. That's because I've got mostly medium armor with 2 pieces of light. I'm not wearing a shield. It's keeping me below 15, which is the mark which goes from light to medium. As you can see, while wearing light armor, your dodge is a quick roll that covers a lot of distance. That's exactly what we've just been looking at. You deal an extra 20% bonus damage as well, which is really important. If you go up into the medium, your dodge becomes a quick hop. I can show you what that looks like now by putting on this helmet. So your dodge becomes a quick hop, you deal 10% bonus damage, and crowd control debuffs you apply last 10% longer. So that starts to work as a different gameplay. However, you don't cover as much ground. You can still do the animation cancel, and you can still get 3 out per bar, and you still move quickly. But if you are a light armor wearer and you're in that light category, you're going to be able to get away from people much quicker, and that's where that animation cancelling really comes into its own. And that's where you could do something called kiting people, which is essentially teasing them and getting them to follow you and follow you and follow you. You do that to kite them into more of your teammates, so you can have a unfair fight, or you can do it to kite them back to town, or you could just do it to kite them so you can get yourself into some cover. So I've actually got a bit of an example of how fast it is compared to somebody who's just running normally. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go. See the difference already? And just by using this triple roll, we've got all the way here and made a lot of gains. Once you get used to that roll dodge and that animation cancelling, you can actually use it to your benefit as well. I've got an example here, look. I'll engage an enemy with a ranged weapon, I'll shoot them as they come towards me and change weapon, which gets me ready straight away to hit them and finish off the fight. It's really important that you're using these rolls and these dodges as often as possible. So I've got an example on the screen at the moment, which is me closing a gap, and I'm zigzagging to close that gap to avoid any incoming fire. All you're doing there is changing the person's axis. They cannot get a shot on you if they've got a ranged attack. However, if you're fighting somebody with a melee ability, again, they've got to constantly change angle if you're constantly taking them off their axis. And the idea is, if you can roll around people and constantly change your point of view and reset, don't be greedy, don't get off too many hits, they are going to really struggle to hit you whilst you're controlling the fight and hitting them. So get used to cancelling like that for movement, but also get used to dodging and hitting. Dodge, hit, dodge, hit, dodge, hit. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is cover, and this is where the other 2 buttons come in really useful. So what's on the screen at the moment is I've got a trusty assistant firing some shots at me whilst I'm behind cover. And as you can see, whilst I'm ducked behind the cover, or whilst I'm prone behind the cover, you can't get hit, you're absolutely safe. So by using those key binds that we've talked about, that dodge and that prone, you can keep yourself behind cover to heal up, to use your food and to use your potions. You can re-engage on your terms. But you can also, if you have a ranged weapon like a musket or a bow or even a staff, you can also use that cover to hide whilst you reload. I want to show you something called snaking, This is from a first person shooter. A lot of people do it. So you duck and you come up from the cover. And the reason it's called snaking is because your head looks like a snake when it moves. But the idea is you're keeping your head out of the way. And that's really important in this game because this game has 2 hitboxes, unlike other MMORPGs. It's got a headshot multiplier, so you get more damage, you take more damage, and you get more damage for hitting and being hit in the head. Now, what you're doing here is taking a shot, getting your head out of the way so you don't get that multiplier, and taking another shot. It means I can provide range cover to my friends who are fighting without ever putting myself in danger. Okay, so that works nicely into my last point, which is really important for PvP. It's knowing your weapons and your skills and creating a really good synergy between the two. Synergy means that they work really well together, and it's crucially important in this game. The example that I'd like to give you is what I'm currently using is a musket and a hatchet. The reason I'm doing that is because, first of all, they are both scaled under the same attribute. They're both scaled under dexterity. So my musket is there, and as a secondary, my hatchet is being leveled as well and scaled with dexterity. That means that I don't have to split and have, say, something in strength, like a shield and sword, and then something in intelligence, like a staff. I don't have to split my attribute points, having 2 weaker weapons. They can all be funneled into one channel. But then also, I've got a very specific playstyle in mind and how I would like to engage people in PvP, because this is something that works for me. I use my musket to get a damage over time debuff onto somebody. What that means is I'm going to shoot somebody and they're going to burn, and that's going to tick away for 9 seconds. They're going to be taking damage. No matter what I do over the next 9 seconds, I could do no damage and just run away. No extra damage and just run away. They're going to be taking damage. I can then potentially get another shot off before using my hatchet to close the distance and close the gap, and then start to do melee damage. And the plan is, by that point, they're hopefully getting towards 30% health, where I do 20% more damage on my light and heavy attacks. It could be that you decide to go for something completely different, like for instance the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet. The Ice Gauntlet's really good at slowing people and using crowd control, so you can control the fight really well. And then fire damage burns people a lot like what my musket does, but it also does a lot of high instant damage. So those two together work really well. And again, on attributes, they all fall under intelligence, which means you can put all of your abilities into intelligence. To tell you the truth, I've probably got too much in Constitution right now. And then lastly, the one thing that you really need to make sure you do is always have a potion on you and always have some food on you, but more importantly, make sure they're of the highest level. Like I've already spoke about, PvP battles, especially in this game, are all about fine margins. By making sure you have the best possible potions that are available to you and the best possible rations that are available to you, you might only be getting an extra 20 or 30 health each time you use one. But that 20 or 30 health can be the difference between life or death. And exactly the same with all the synergy and the weapon attributes that we've been talking about and the skills. It might only be the difference between doing an extra 100 damage, but that extra 100 damage could win you that fight. Couple all of that with what we've spoken about with dodging, using cover, always resetting and not getting greedy when you're hitting people, and using your movement to get away from people if you need to, and you're onto a winner. I think come the end of August, when this game comes out, there's going to be a lot of people who are pushing that PvP early doors. So it might be time now that beta's over to start thinking about what your build's going to be. How is your playstyle going to work with the people that you're going to play with? So when you get into the game, you can get to level 9, you can pick a faction, and then you can get straight out there and start doing some open world PvP. Because it's a really good way to level your weapons, and it's a great way to have spontaneous fun, which is just really engaging in this game. And that's it, that's all I've got for you for this video. But hopefully it's helped some people. who were getting stumped in PvP, and hopefully it's going to help you in duels, open world PvP, outpost rushes, and invasions when the game actually drops at the end of this month. Thanks very much for watching, guys.